Hey, greetings, everyone. Lieutenant Colonel Alan West here, and welcome to the Steadfast and Loyal program.
You gotta light 'em up before they burn it down. Better dig deep, put 'em in the ground. Blood on their hands, they're hellbound. Save us all. Ooh, they're gonna burn it down. Save us all before they burn it down.
Hey, folks, welcome back to the Steadfast and Loyal podcast. We just finished a good conversation with the new Texas State Director for the Gun Owners of America. That is Lee Gibson. She is replacing Wes Verdell. And how interesting, as I said, that in the state of Texas, the individual that is the state director for the Gun Owners of America is not some old white guy. Not a white guy at all, young, old, whatever. But it's a woman. And I think that's something important that we need to emphasize because, women, you need to be able to protect yourselves. When you hear this quote unquote first female president thing and first black female president thing, I don't care about the melanin in your skin. I don't care about the levels of estrogen. What I care about is, do you understand that this is a constitutional republic? Do you understand the United States Constitution? Because as president of the United States of America, you're going to take an oath to preserve, to protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States of America. Last time I checked, the Second Amendment was in the Constitution of the United States of America. Last time I checked, it's part of the Bill of Rights that had to be added to our Constitution before it could even be really considered to be ratified. Because all of the other 13 states at the time pretty much so had something along those lines. And even the states that came afterwards also had something along those lines. So first and foremost, let's have a little discussion about the history of the Second Amendment and why our founding fathers thought it was necessary to put that in there as an individual right, not something that government gives you, but part of those inalienable rights that come from your creator. The natural rights theory, life, liberty, property, John Locke, 1689, two treatises of government in the second treatise of government. Because on that day of April the 19th of 1775, so important to understand, that One It by Land, Two It by Sea, Paul Revere's Night Ride, when the British landed, they were marching inland into Massachusetts. Their objective, their target, their mission was to destroy a weapons and armaments factory that was supplying the Sons of Liberty. So in other words, the British did not want to have any means by which their absolutism, their totalitarianism, their control of the people could be challenged. And they were going to make sure, going to the source, that they would not be able to be supplied. That was the center of gravity, as we would call it in the military terms. But what happened on that day was that men who were alerted, the militia, let's just put it in perspective. There was no army on April the 19th of 1775. The Army came later in June of 1775, June the 14th, as a matter of fact. There was no Navy. The Navy came in October of 1775. There was no Marine Corps. The Marine Corps came in November of 1775. And for all you great airmen and Space Force members, y'all came way later. But the thing is to understand is that there were men who were trained to defend their communities, to protect their communities. That was a natural right. That was an inherent right. And they saw the British as a threat to that liberty and freedom, what they were marching to do. And so, therefore, they took the field at Lexington Green. And interestingly enough, if you read, they were led by a pastor, a minister. That's where we get this term Black Robe Regiment. That's why, we start the thing here of issuing out the Black Robe Regiment tomahawk to pastors that we see who are standing up for individual rights, freedoms, and liberties. But those men came out and fired that shot against the greatest military power that the world knew at that time, Mother England. They did not stop them, but they said that we're going to make a stand. They weren't professional soldiers. The British continued on and they got to Concord. They did not find what they were looking for, but on their way back, they were met at Concord Bridge. And that's where they got spanked. And they were harassed all the way back to back to Boston. And when you talk about Breeds Hill, Bunker Hill, again, we're not talking about some national army. As a matter of fact, there was no United States of America until the following year, July the 4th, 1776. So when you understand that backdrop, that's the mentality that the founding fathers had. That's what they knew. That's what they had experienced. When you read the entire Declaration of Independence, which is a list of grievances and complaints and usurpations against King George III in England, and you combine it with what happened on April the 19th of 1775, then you realize why they came up with the words later on, after we fought and won our independence, to go into the Constitution. So when it says, Second Amendment, a well-regulated militia. Regulated does not mean the ATF, folks. Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. Well-regulated means well-trained, well-disciplined. That's the language of the founding fathers. That's why you have to go and study each and every one of these words, get inside their minds, get inside the framework by which they wrote these things. A well-regulated militia. The militia is everybody. It's Lee Gibson. It's myself. It's our producer, Chad. It's all y'all, ussin', as we say down south. It's not the National Guard. It's not the United States Army, Air Force, Marine Corps, no, Navy, because really there's a thing called posse comitatus. It's just the same as in Rome. The Roman army was not allowed to come back and enter into Rome. They had the Praetorians that pretty much so were the protectors of the actual city of Rome. So the same thing here. We have an army, a Navy, an Air Force, a Marine Corps, a Space Force. We also have a Coast Guard. But really, their mission is not to come and defend in this homeland. Now, yes, you have the National Guard that falls under the jurisdiction of respective state governors, but the militia is every single one of us. That was the frame set, because those are the people who came out on April the 19th of 1775. So a well-regulated militia, first of all, trained and disciplined. Militia, ussin', all y'all, everybody, citizens. Being necessary for the security of a free state. It is our inherent responsibility as citizens in this constitutional republic to make sure that we can provide the security of this state, these United States of America. And when you hear people talk about, as we discussed with Lee, we want to defund the police. Let me tell you, Dallas Police Department, woefully short. And then you want to have people say that, we want to take away your rights. We want you to not be able to defend yourselves. Look, it's not just about myself. It's about my duty, obligation, responsibility as a citizen, part of that well-regulated militia, being necessary for the security of a free state. And when I hear someone like President Joe Biden come out and say that no amendment to the Constitution is absolute, how can you have a person like that sitting in the Oval Office? And I'm quite sure that Kamala Harris believes the same. As a matter of fact, we got a person that is a member of the United States House of Representatives, is running to be a senator from the state of Texas by the name of Colin Allred. He believes we should get rid of the Second Amendment. He said it, his own words. How can anybody vote for someone like that when they're supposed to be upholding our rule of law? Therefore, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Let me tell you, when my mommy and daddy said shall not, that means I better not. And if I did, I got a whipping. So how is it that we are allowing people to basically do what the British did back on April the 9th, or sought to do on April the 19th of 1775, is to destroy a system? Like I said, this is an assault weapon. You can poke it into someone's throat right here at the carotid artery. A knife is an assault. Anything that you use, a baseball bat, a pipe, rope, anything that you use to assault another individual is an assault weapon. But somehow we have allowed the Marxists, the progressive socialists here in America, to redefine language. So now we believe everything that you use to defend yourself, because it's not going to stop at a semi-automatic rifle. And first and foremost, a semi-automatic rifle is not a weapon of war. You have to be real dumb to carry a semi-automatic rifle into a combat zone. Maybe someone should tell Tim Waltz that, Mr., we need to ban those things that I carried in a combat zone. What a doofus. But that's the left. And every single dictatorship, authoritarian, autocrat, in order to suppress the people, the first thing they did was take away the ability of the people to defend themselves. You go back to Hitler, his rise in Nazi Germany. Hermann Göring was the Minister of Interior. They had gun registrations. When you have gun registration, then the federal government knows where all the guns are. And then they confiscated them. Hugo Chavez, if you want to come a little bit closer to modern history, Hugo Chavez did the exact same thing in Venezuela. And look at what has happened in what was once one of the most prosperous nations in the Western Hemisphere. So this is not playtime. When you have a wide open border to the point where, we saw the ICE data release, 400,000 plus. If they say 400,000, it's probably more like 1 million of these single military age male criminals that have been released. 10 to 15,000 of murderers. Well, actually 20,000 of murderers and rapists released into the United States of America. Laken Riley might still be alive if she was out jogging and she had a little 22 pistol, maybe a little 380. The mother of 5 in Maryland, 37-year-old woman, maybe she still be alive. But we are setting ourselves up for not just totalitarianism and absolutism, we're also setting ourselves up to be made victims. Lieutenant Colonel Alan West, Steadfast and Loyal program. We'll be right back.
Hey folks, Lieutenant Colonel Alan West here at Watchtower Firearms. This is the custom design AR-15 that was just made for me. It's got my Steadfast and Loyal logo there. On this side, you can see my signature, my master parachutist wings, of course, American flag. And I just want to tell you that you can't be a great American unless you have a great American weapon. And that's exactly what Watchtower Firearms is building. Great American weapons, all American parts, manufactured right here in the great state of Texas. And oh, by the way, let me see, where is the serial number on this one? TX1836. If you're from Texas, I think you know what that means. God bless you. God bless Watchtower.
Hit, dead center. Yes.
Hey, greetings, everyone. Lieutenant Colonel Alan West, Steadfast and Loyal program. Welcome back to our final segment for this episode of the program. We started out talking with Lee Gibson, who is the Texas State Director for Gun Owners of America. Great interview, great young woman. You heard her story about why she left California to come to Texas, because they were really almost banning and restricting the ability for her and her husband to buy shotgun shells for their sons who are competitive trap and skeet shooters. See, that has nothing to do with assault weapons. That's really the mentality of the left. They don't believe you should have it. And they're going to make it just plain difficult. You can't even go out and be a competitive shooter, something that is really ingrained in the American tradition, the American way of life, the American psyche. As a matter of fact, if you want to go back and understand why the National Rifle Association was started and its first president was General Ambrose Burnside, you might remember him from the Battle of Antietam during the Civil War. But then again, they don't teach history too much anymore. But the NRA was founded because they saw that marksmanship was so bad in the Civil War that something had to be done to make sure we got back to the basics and the fundamentals of training marksmanship here in the United States of America. That's why the NRA was established, the nation's oldest civil rights organization, because the Second Amendment is a civil right, your individual right enshrined in the Constitution. But when you think about where we are today, and living here in Texas, I mean, Lee left California for Texas because she felt that there would be more of a protection of her Second Amendment rights here as opposed to in California. We know that to be true. But the fact that the Texas State Fair, where, of course, the Cotton Bowl is located, and there's going to be a little football game called the Red River Shootout, rivalry between Texas and Oklahoma. But yet, because last year, a criminal, someone with nefarious and malicious intent, snuck a gun in through an open portion of a fence line, instead of punishing that person and punishing, the criminal element, now they're punishing, in the state of Texas, legal, law-abiding gun owners, people that go through the training, people that pay to get that carry license, like myself, yours truly, and say, you're the bad person. We're going to tell you, you cannot come into the Texas State Fair. We're going to restrict your individual rights in Texas. And of course, what is the theme? What do we always hear about the Texas State Fair? Is the most Texas place in Texas. Not true. Might as well be in California. And to know that 3 judges that were appointed by the governor of the state of Texas, Republican, ruled that what the city of Dallas and the Texas State Fair decided to restrict the Second Amendment rights of legal, law-abiding gun systems, it was fine. Now, 3 judges on a course of appeals who are supposed to be interpreting the law. Well, if you interpret the law, it will tell you that you can't do that. You can't restrict someone's individual right. So, I mean, would you restrict the freedom of speech, freedom of expression at the Texas State Fair? I mean, if I wanted to shout out, woo, yee, on one of the rides, would you say, oh, no, you cannot do that. You must ride in silence. That's how absurd it's getting. And then that decision goes before the Texas Supreme Court, all Republicans, and they say, yeah, that's fine. We're going to uphold that. Now, that's Texas. And so what Lee was talking about, all y'all out there, they're saying, I ain't got nothing to worry about. I got plenty of guns. Well, next thing you know, you're not going to be able to not just have them, but not go anywhere with them. Because that is what's happening even in a state like Texas, which is supposed to be this preeminent red state. We're seeing that simple right being undermined. Let me bring up another name, young man that I have known and met, and I heard his story at the Gun Owners of America dinner a week ago. Kyle Carruth of Lubbock, Texas. Kyle Carruth of Lubbock, Texas. Look up his case. Look up his story. Innocent man at his home, which happened to be, nice little ranch house. He could see, long dirt road coming into his ranch. A man shows up at his home, storms up on the porch of his home, starts shouting and threatening him. Kyle calls and asks First and foremost, he asked him to leave several times. Kyle calls the police. The police say, well, we really can't do anything about it. So what does Kyle do? Kyle has the right to defend his life, liberty, and property. Kyle gets a firearm. He goes out and asks the man once again to leave. This man, who was much larger than Kyle, charges him. Kyle did not shoot him. They wrestled. He threw Kyle to the ground. Then Kyle shot the man and killed the man. He was not charged with anything. No bill, because he acted rightfully so. He was attacked at his own home. But now Kyle has been brought up in civil court. He is being told that he will have to pay $51 million for the person, shooting the person that attacked him at his home. That's in Texas. Kyle Carruth has seen his life and livelihood completely destroyed. His family destroyed. Because he defended himself on his home, on his porch, from someone that attacked him physically. Not criminally charged, yet in the civil side, he is charged. He spent over $500,000. Now, why do you need a Gun Owners of America here in the state of Texas? Because they're the ones that took up his cause and took up his case. And in this next legislative session, what they're fighting to show is that if you are not charged in criminal court, you should not be charged in civil court. Seems pretty logical to me. How does Sam Hill, does a person that is attacked on their property by someone that was asked to leave, by someone that physically assaulted the owner of that property, he loses his life. The shooter, who is the victim, is not found criminally charged, but yet it goes to a civil court, and they're going to try to fine him, charge him $51 million? Where does that make sense? That really does sound like California, not Texas. Or as Lee brought out, the fact that we have constables in the state of Texas serving warrants from California for red flag law violations. It should be just torn up and thrown aside. As Lee articulated, Governor Newsom said, we don't want anyone doing business in Texas from the state of California, not the California government or anybody. We'll punish you if you do that. I'm just trying to comprehend and understand why in a red state we still acquiesce. Why in a red state we ban people from legally carrying their weapons at a state fair, Texas? Why in a red state are we allowing someone to be charged in a civil court, $51 million, for defending himself and not be found, not having even, being found guilty, not charges dropped in the criminal case? Why are we in a red state serving warrants, red flag laws from California? I just don't get it. That's why we need Gun Owners of America. That's why we need people that are going down to Texas, to Austin, which, oh, by the way, remember in Austin where a young Army sergeant who shot a BLM protester, an illegal BLM protester, because they did not have a permit to conduct the riot and blocking traffic like they did, he gets sent to jail in Texas because it was down in Austin and Travis County, which is very sympathetic to Antifa and Black Lives Matter. But that's what's happening in Texas. I met that young man. He just got released. He was pardoned. Shouldn't have never gotten to that point. See, we need to start sending a message. Right now, we're not. Basically, we're telling anti-Second Amendment people, people that want to undermine our constitutional right to be able to protect our life, liberty, and property, that they can win here in the state of Texas. You know why this presidential election is so important? Because there are people that believe that they can rule over us by executive order. That's what Joe Biden has done when it's come to the Second Amendment. He's used the ATF, the alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, to basically undermine our rights. Cannot allow that to happen anymore. Kamala Harris will just put that into overdrive. It is time for gun owners, legal, law-abiding citizens, to stand up and participate in this electoral process. I don't want to hear about 10 million gun owners sitting this one out. I really don't want to hear about 25 to 31 million self-identified Christians sitting it out as well. If you're going to be steadfast and loyal, you're going to stand up for the Constitution, because every amendment in the Constitution is absolute. And from history, certainly the Second Amendment is absolute in these short words that it states. Steadfast and loyal.
Before they burn it down.